Welcome to A Healthier, Happier You, the people working to make it happen. I'm Evan J. Cholfin from Luxhammer, where we help the brands that help you live healthier. Today, I'm joined by Rupinder Singh, President of UK and Europe at Gentell, a leader in advanced wound care solutions. Rupinder, thanks for being here.
Hey, Evan, thank you very much for inviting me. I'm really looking forward to the conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, me too. So what's the story behind Gentell's expansion into UK and European markets?
It's a great story. Actually, like most great stories, it starts off with someone who has a real passion. And this really goes back to our founder and current global chief executive and president, David Navazio. David had a vision back in the mid-90s, so Gentell started in 1994. And he just felt there was a better way to support patients with wounds. And really that mirrors a lot of the story that we see globally at the moment. But David had that passion, and he felt that this was all about treating the patient, but doing it in a way which focuses on the patient. Put some of those other iterations to one side. So the Gentell started in the mid-90s, and today it operates out of 1/3 of the nursing homes in the US. So it's the largest market share in the US, which is absolutely fantastic and testament really to David's vision, working with healthcare professionals and ensuring that the system fully supports them and delivers the patient the best care.
That's great. So what makes Gentell's approach unique in the wound care space?
Yeah, so I think this unique point has really come together over time, actually. If you go back to the mid-90s, we were effectively an organization which was supporting education and training and wound care into nursing homes. But today, we are what we refer to as a fully integrated provider. We are a manufacturer of medical devices, dressings, etc. Everywhere from general dressings, advanced wound care dressings, closure devices. We also employ tissue viability nurses, clinical wound advisors, effectively around 150 of them. So we are, by default, one of the largest employers of nurses in the US. And lastly, we have a very effective platform, which we call Fast Care. And this is a technology platform that we've developed over the last 10 to 15 years. And it's about wound assessment. There's AI that's being built in. There's imaging that's being built in. This is very much about focusing on the patient, delivering the best outcomes, tracking wound healing, and really just making that very transparent to the patient and clinical wound advisors.
Yeah, and I'm really interested, where are you focusing most of your energy in European operations right now?
Yeah, so the model for what we're doing in the UK and Europe. So if I focus on the UK now, Brexit put a hard line. We won't go there, of course, but Brexit put a hard line between the UK and Europe. So the UK is really premised and modelled on what's happening in the US, but really localized for the UK. So in the UK, in 2018, I believe it was, there was a publication called the National Wound Care Strategy. And that publication by the government, the NHS effectively, spelled out what the issues were in wound care. Poor outcomes, lack of standardization, lack of technology, not enough nurses to deliver the care, not enough specialist nurses, not enough education and training. So all of these different gaps, if you like, in the system aligned neatly to what we do in the US around patient-specific approach, around technology, around the right products for the right wounds. So everything really sat very neatly in there. And with my background of working for central government, regulating the NHS for around 10 years, followed by working on the provider side. So working in NHS Trust on the strategy side, I could absolutely see that the Gentell model fits like a glove. So the purpose of us working in the UK is to stand up primarily a service model. Selling products is boring, frankly. That's the manufacturing part of what we do. It's an important part, but ultimately we're about treating patients. So what we're doing in the UK, first of all, we are establishing wound care centres. This really does tune in with the way the NHS is moving and has been moving for the last 10 years, which is delivering more care outside of hospital walls. The view that major hospitals should really be only for emergency care and those more serious complex issues. So delivering care in the community for us, wound care is an absolutely essential part of that. And the way we're doing that is through a few different layers. So the first layer is fixed clinics. So a place that somebody can go to get specialist wound care. Okay, somebody who knows what they're doing, who absolutely focuses on the patient and delivers what's required to optimize their wound healing journey. I could tell you stories about, one of our employees, Sylvie Hunter. She started the first wound care clinics back in probably 2000. Okay. And she was seeing patients with wounds who had the wound for, say, 3 years. They came into the clinic and they were healed within 8 weeks. Somebody who's had a wound for 3 years, didn't have the right focus to heal the wound. So this really told us about the impact of specialist care. So fixed clinics is one part of the model. The next part of the model is about mobile clinics. So moving mobile vans, effectively, which are wound care clinics, around the patch to where people live, where the patient flow needs to be. But then the last part of our model is about delivering wound care directly into people's homes. Okay, so fixed clinics, mobile clinics, and home care. These are all really important aspects. And if I could just for 1 second bring us back to this question about Gentell and this fully integrated approach that David Navazio set out. Everything I mentioned to you is the way the model works in the US today. They're the market leader. But David's vision for the way things should be done is about taking control of the supply chain and therefore doing better for the patients and the customers. One really good example of that is Gentell Direct. So in the US, we used to rely on lots of different third-party logistics providers, be it FedEx, UPS, to deliver our products into the various nursing homes across the whole of the US. David decided as a result of various quality issues, time, that we will take control of that. So now we have our own fleet of trucks, our own fleet of drivers. Initially, that cost us more, but that was absolutely worth it in terms of ensuring the quality of the supply and that supply chain. So it's this ethos and philosophy that really drives what we do in the UK today. We're pushing the boundary, but we don't want to do it by ourselves. We want to work with the NHS as partners, as collaborators, and improve outcomes. So we strongly believe that if you focus on standardization and remove variability, so everybody gets the same high-level care, you do two things. You improve outcomes, you heal wounds quicker, basically. But secondly, because you're doing it more effectively and efficiently, costs come down. So better for the system, better for patients. So for us, it's a win-win.
What would you say is your biggest challenge in growing Gentell's presence in Europe?
Yeah, really good question. And I'm going to focus on the UK here again. I think the biggest challenge is the system itself, actually. When the system's been doing something in a particular way for such a long period of time, it's in that rut, it's in that groove. So innovation is a really difficult thing to achieve in the NHS. It requires clinicians to engage, managers to engage, a system to engage, the right funding model to pump prime that innovation. We as a provider come in and we try and alleviate some of those issues. We care less about the commercials. We care more about the model. Let's get the model right and everything else will work itself out. But the biggest challenge has certainly been the system. So the way we do this and the way that I've learned to do this over the last 20 years is to find those organizations and those people in the organizations who have an open mindset and are the change champions. And that's an easy term to throw around, change champions. The reality of the NHS today is it's probably like most healthcare systems around the world. It's buckling. It's under a lot of pressure, probably doesn't have enough resource. It's changing, it's transforming all of the time. So the level of fatigue amongst clinicians is high. So we try and alleviate most of those issues. But if we work with 2 or 3 of the best organizations around the country, they will serve as our reference sites, because there's no better advocate for a change in the system than one clinician at one hospital speaking to another clinician at another hospital. So this is a journey that we're on at the moment, and this journey will take us time. I think from where we are today, we've made great progress. We've set up our first wound care clinics. We are now a major supplier in the NHS. We've now introduced our technology fast care into the NHS. So all of these are moving in the right direction. I think it will take us at least another 12 months to really gain credible foothold and win the trust of NHS people, NHS nurses and others. Because ultimately, we are a private sector working towards dealing with the patient and making sure the patient gets the best care and the system benefits from that too.
You mentioned change champions. Where are they and how do you find them?
Excellent question. And there's certainly no list that you can go to on the internet to find who these change champions are. My personal experience, actually. I've worked, as I said, in the NHS and around the NHS and in the regulator for close to 20 years. I've met so many good people, so many good clinicians, chief executives, medical directors, people who work in social care. Because in the UK, there's something called integrated care bodies, which try and pull together all aspects of care under one umbrella called an integrated care body, an integrated care system. So social care, healthcare, community services and other aspects of that, because these are the same patients that move across these different parts of the system. So the system working in silos doesn't help the patient. This is about joining the system up. Over my 20 years, I've come to learn who are the people who work best in terms of understanding innovation and how to bring that innovation into the system. One way to really kill an innovation is to call it a project or pilot, because as soon as you call it a project or a pilot, it sort of moves out of mind over here. It needs to form a fundamental part of the change process within the NHS. It's augmenting a current service. And that really is about skin in the game from both sides. If it gets termed a pilot and you run the pilot, then what happens at the end of the pilot? Many of these just fall down a dark hole. So in our opinion, and the way we're working is as partners. So if you work and you describe the change you want to achieve, and you as partners with the clinical champion help to work out what the plumbing looks like between the organisations, that's the best way to move that forward. It's hearts and minds. So I could certainly give you a list of some wonderful clinicians actually up and down the country. There will be many, many more that I've never come in contact with. The reality of the NHS is one particular hospital might be described as inadequate by the Care Quality Commission over here. The reality is, within that particular hospital, there are probably 40 or 50 different services. Some of those services will be absolutely spectacular, okay, and deliver exactly what they need to for the patient. So these labels that are placed on organisations don't really reflect really what goes on in that organisation, in my view. And I come from a regulatory background, of course. Whether an organisation is classed as inadequate or outstanding, there are still great people to work with in those organisations. And clearly, an organisation that is struggling has a greater need for transformation. Probably less bandwidth to deliver it, but a greater need for it.
Definitely. You mentioned your regulatory background. How are you handling regulatory compliance across different regions?
When it comes to regions, the compliance in the UK and the NHS kind of sits at one level. Right? There are a few different layers, I would say. You have the Care Quality Commission, which regulates all healthcare, okay, and domiciliary care, home care. And then you have an NHS regulator, NHS Improvement, NHS England, who have other regulatory oversight. And that comes from the centre, and that's across the whole system. Local bodies, which are called integrated care bodies and others, which are about promoting transformation, okay, and ensuring consistency and good standards of care. And there are commissioners. Going to your question about compliance and local levels. So the way that's best articulated in wound care is really about, in our opinion, is wound care formulary. So every NHS trust up and down the country, in terms of how they treat their patients, which products they use, for example, and the treatment plans, are described within a formulary. Okay. Now, you would hope that all formularies are broadly consistent, and probably 80 to 90% of them are. But you have to work with each NHS trust and their local formulary. The great thing about Fast Care, our technology platform, is that you can load the local formulary directly into Fast Care. So it locks in the way that current system works, and therefore just creates a very systematic way of treating and dealing with patients that's fully documented, and there's a level of reporting that comes out of the system as well.
It was interesting how you were talking about building out that model. I'm curious what your biggest roadblock to reaching that point within the UK and beyond is.
Yeah, I think we've had a few roadblocks, and I don't think we would necessarily experience anything too different from what other innovators would be bringing. Our issue is getting the bandwidth and the attention of the NHS hospitals and the NHS trusts. Unfortunately, wound care as a service doesn't have the same visibility as other services. For example, cardiology, accident and emergency. Wound care doesn't have the visibility, the transparency, and because of that, it doesn't have the right investment that goes into the service. It doesn't have the same oversight, transparency at board level. So chief executive may know very little about wound care service that they're delivering within their organization. So the battle, first of all, is to put that on the agenda. And the way we do that, Evan, is we realize that this isn't just about engaging with one person at an NHS hospital. They call them NHS trusts over here. It's about engaging at a strategic level, at the board level, but also engaging at the operational and the clinical level. You need all these mindsets to be going at the same time so that you can really create that momentum and that case for change. That's really the approach that we've taken. But as I said, some of the real blockers are about the relative chaos that surrounds the NHS today, because COVID has of course, been a game changer for most systems around the world. Here today, I believe we probably have a backlog in terms of elective care. That might take us 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years to unravel and bring those waiting times back to where they need to be. That's not as quick as just clicking your fingers, because even before COVID, the system was buckling. It didn't have enough capacity, didn't have enough nurses, enough theatre time, so trying to then deal with a backlog has just really exacerbated that whole problem. The great thing is the NHS, I think, has galvanised really well around this, and they've set up diagnostic centres and other parts of the infrastructure in communities, some more capacity to see people quicker, get them to a treatment quicker, a diagnosis quicker. We understand how we need to build this, but this is absolutely about partnership with us. Everything has to be in partnership. I'd love to say that we come with all of the answers. We don't. The US has an absolutely fantastic system. What David has built, I would say, is groundbreaking, innovative, and that's why it's leading the market. Bringing that system into the UK means we need to UKify it and fit it into the NHS. So we don't come with all of the answers. We come with great evidence. We see over 10,000 patients a day in the US. We gather a lot of data for the fast care system. We know we're doing the right thing. We know we're standardising wound care, delivering great outcomes. So bringing that and converting that into the NHS, you have to take baby steps over here. And once you've got their attention, you need to work with them as partners that takes them through a documented approach that helps alleviate some of the implementation as well. So that's what we're doing over here. And I know that's a lot about the UK, and I haven't really spoke about Europe yet. And if I could just briefly touch on Europe. So Europe for us is about two things. It comes back to us being a manufacturer of products, but it's also about us introducing fast care. Other manufacturers really come with product. We come with product, but we also come with technology. This technology can be deployed into hospitals, into Europe and other territories to help document wounds and help report on wounds. So really, we see ourselves as adding more value than your everyday manufacturer, right? Anybody can create dressings. It's not the dressings that really moves the dial in terms of wound care. It's the technology, the standardization, and the specialist input.
Could you elaborate a little bit more on the technology side?
Yeah. So this one, I could probably spend a good hour on this, but I'll truncate it to a few minutes, okay? So David Navazio had this vision about the way technology would play a role. It started off in the US as a way for our customers and the nursing homes to be clear around which products they wanted. Okay, and this system then automated that. But then over the last 10 to 15 years, the system has become an assessment tool. So it will document all of the aspects of the patient's wounds. Okay, and also some of the softer aspects around nutrition, hygiene and things like this. So really, you're getting a very clear picture of the patient, their wounds, the demography of those wounds. And then each time that assessment is updated through FastCare, it will then show you the closure rate. So you can actually start tracking a patient's closure rate for their wounds versus the sort of 1.5 million wounds which have already been documented in the system. So you have actually a way, the incarnation of AI in some respects, of saying, Betty has these wounds, she's 65, we would expect her wound to close over this period of time. And therefore you can start holding people to account for the delivery of that care and making sure that we optimize Betty's healing. So FastCare is a way to document wounds automatically. We are currently building in imaging. So we'll automatically take the length, width and depth of that wound and upload that too. It has the reporting aspects I've mentioned. You could download all of the relevant formulary into that system. I'd like to say this is a unique approach, but there are actually two companies, in my view, that also have a system like this. But what it doesn't have is that real-world application. We use this in almost 5,000 nursing homes in the US, so it's practically used on a daily basis. It has that data flowing through it, which these other companies don't have. But on top of that, this is a system that we don't sell, part of the value add of working with Gentell, whereas the other companies will be selling their systems, commercializing their systems. So we see ourselves as very much as about healing wounds and this documentation side, but bringing all of this added value at the same time. FastCare has got a roadmap around how we're going to bring out more features, more functions, but you'll notice we design this with the market. Nurses, others, organizations, NHS and others in this country will tell us what they need and we will design it for their needs so that we effectively deliver a system that delivers more and more value.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing about that. I find that fascinating. So I'm curious, what's your strategy for market penetration in different European countries?
I'd like to open up by probably saying this is a bit of a can of worms, actually, because Europe, Middle East, Latin America, and some of the other countries, you'll know that each country has its own registration process. Okay, I would say the main strands that run through many of these territories are the fact that they respect CE marking. That's seen as being a real standard. Some of the countries see FDA approval, 510K as being a similar standard. So we need to ensure that our products meet the right standards first. So we have most of our ranges CE marked or CA marked or FDA approved, okay? And we have this whole range of products. But then in each territory, what we do is we find a market partner. So a distributor who has market knowledge, so really understands the market very well. We don't call them distributors, actually. My business development director corrected me on day one, actually, when he started. So he schooled me. He said, these aren't distributors, they're our partners, okay? We win, they win, okay? So he works with these organizations as partners. So we work together. So we, of course, provide product. They provide market intelligence. They tell us about the competition. They tell us about the best entry routes. They tell us about the tenders. And that way we align. But then there's a whole regulatory side. So we have an absolutely fantastic regulatory team in our Canada operation. And our regulatory team help build out all of the documentation that's required in order to support registration in all of these territories. So some might take 2 or 3 months. Some might take a year. Some, the bar is very high. Some it's very low. It's a shame there isn't greater harmonization, I have to say, in standards across the world. But this is the environment that we're operating in, and we're very capable of operating in that environment. So yes, we work with organizations as partners. We want to meet their expectations and also our expectations. One of the really important things for us is quality. So assurance around the supply chain, fulfillment, delivery times, not having back orders, because our partners don't want to have back orders with their customers. Reputationally and otherwise, that's not good. So David Navazio, one of his key focuses is to ensure that we meet our customers' expectations, be that a patient in a nursing home or be that one of our partners who operate out there selling our products into different systems around the world.
A broader picture, what trends are you seeing in wound care that excite you?
Yeah, there are there's some great things happening here. Let me start by one of the most exciting products that we're launching actually in the UK at the moment is a product called Gentell Blue, otherwise known as RTD. So it's a completely unique product. So innovation comes in many shapes and sizes. Some could be via technology, some could actually be through product technology. And the Gentell Blue product is one that really delivers on many different aspects of wound care. And we see it as being the standard for diabetic foot, actually, over the next 12 months. Because it brings antimicrobial, it brings silver, oxygen, so infuses and encourages oxygen. And oxygen is actually probably one of the most fundamental things in terms of wound healing. It's not the dressing. The dressing plays its part, okay? But blood circulation and encouraging blood circulation is a really key aspect to wound healing. Technology we are pushing in terms of fast care, we're pushing in terms of product development, and we're also pushing it in terms of the way we're innovating the actual service delivery model. So in terms of products, I would say the really exciting products at the moment are the ones which are advanced wound care dressings. Okay. Because what they do is not only do they heal the wound quicker, they have some of the softer aspects in terms of reducing smell, reducing pain, really important aspects that are important for the patients rather than the system, of course. But what they do as well is they truncate, they really reduce that wound healing time. So wounds get healed quicker, so the system saves money too. So Gentell Blue is the one I would put out there right now as the one that's absolutely our focus in the UK, Europe, Latin America, and up at the Middle East and elsewhere. We see it as being an absolute game changer.
Yeah, that's really amazing and sounds like a great product to be excited about. So if we had this conversation in 12 months, what achievements would you say it's been a successful year for Gentell?
Yeah, and let's absolutely have that conversation in 12 months' time, okay? What I think, we won't achieve everything we set out to achieve. Let me put that there first. And then we have to acknowledge that because what we're doing is transformation, okay? But I think what you'll see, if we were talking, say, at the end of December or January next year, we would, I believe, be the leading provider of wound care centres and clinics in the UK. Okay. And that's a bold claim to make, but we know by the fact that we've only recently opened our first 2 wound care clinics, and they are already attracting attention. They're demonstrating the best outcomes. So we know we're doing the right thing. And we have our next row of wound care centres to open up. So those wound care, those fixed centres that I mentioned before. But what we'll also have is we will be the name of treating wounds in people's homes. So not just district nurses going in. We want to enable friends and family to support their loved ones on their wound healing journey. And fast care is a really important part of that, because if you can simplify a system to the extent where anybody in that family or friend network can hold the fast care system up to the wound, it will take the demography of the wound, it will pass that back to the specialist clinician to provide advice. And then within 2 days, you will have a package of the dressings arrive at the home, supported by education and training to support that person at home. So fixed clinics delivering care in the home will be a major aspect of what we would be doing. And we will deliver over the next 12 months. Outside of that, what I think you'll see is, coming back to Gentell Blue, for example, we will be delivering, I believe, some of the best products to support diabetic foot and other wounds around that. It's not just for diabetic foot. So I think that's what you'll see. But Gentell, if I was sitting here with David Navazir and I said, what would success look like for you in 12 months' time? He would say to me, we've treated more patients, we've changed people's lives for the better. And that isn't just the person at home with the wound or the person in facility with the wound, but that's the healthcare professionals that are supporting those people too, because they are under a lot of pressure as well. So if you can support them through technology, through education and training, that's the other part of this. So that's what David will put there as his this is success for us. We are making the world a better place. We are dealing with wounds and treating wounds. I'm in the UK and Europe. I run UK and Europe and some of the wider territories. And for me, that's absolutely the goal. And if we achieve that, all of our other goals, commercially and otherwise, will come true.
That's incredible. Well, thank you. That's it for today's episode of Healthier, Happier You, the people working to make it happen. A huge thank you to Rupinder for sharing your insights and the amazing work Gentell is doing to help people live healthier, happier lives. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with somebody who could benefit. And if you're a brand or business making impact in health, wellness, or personal care, we'd love to help you grow. Connect with me at luxhammer.com. Thanks for listening. Until next time, stay healthy, stay happy, and keep making a difference.